8x10 canvas board here and a medium-sized bristly brush. I have the two blues that I'm interested in, ultramarine and the primary cyan. Just grab some of your favorite blues. You're going to use the white to lighten them. Just go in with a dip. You can pick either or. Tiny little dots, dashes, short movements. We are looking for something going on in the sky, not just necessarily a smooth finish. So play with how your canvas reacts to different moves and playing with the brush. Again, my brush is bristly. I like that for that added texture-ish bit and texture-ish. And then I'm going to go ahead and dab in a dash of purple. We're just doing the background sky right now. We'll add the clouds on afterwards. Sort of a muddled look where you can see darks and lights, you know. It's so pretty. Just working into the grooves of the canvas, a little tapping. The bristly brush is helpful to get in all of the tooth, the textured surface. I'm going to go just past halfway. A little purple right here. Just do a little check in there to make sure you got inside all the grooves. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and do a line across. I'll wipe the brush with my clean paper towel, and the water I've got, it's going to be a combination of phthalo blue, which is our blue that leans green, one of them, and a Prussian blue. If you have Payne's gray, that's nice too. They're both darker bluish ones. And I'm just dipping in both and doing a horizon line right about here, going straight across. Okay. And then I'll just be horizontally filling in the canvas texture here. let's get started on the clouds. I'm going to keep in those short stroke patterns. I have a little bit of white on a small flat brush. And just add some short, wispy, try different styles of brush strokes here. Be gentle with your brushes, but there. We may do a couple of layers, so add one up here. It'd be anything from a tap to a little like U shape, not really U, but more like a sort of like a smile shape swoosh. It's really advantageous to take advantage of the texture of the canvas here. So it's almost like a dry brush, kind of, but we don't want to be too rough with our brush, especially with these. This is one of the Taklon. It's a gentler brush versus the bristly one we started with. Hog's hair, camel hair is another rougher, bristly one. But this is one of our soft ones, so it'll be kind of gentle. And then we may bring one down here. Maybe a little smaller clouds farther away. Okay. Okay. And here. This is a good opportunity too to fill in spaces. If while you're looking you'll see that maybe you didn't get enough paint in every little area, you could just put a cloud right there. There is a difference between white paint and raw canvas, and I just like to do a check and not to have an empty spaces where there wasn't any paint. Try differing amounts of paint as well, so you can check for you'll get different kinds of clouds, and you may find one you like better, or they may just represent different cloud types, shapes, etc. I really like that one there, so I'm gonna add some more in that right here, and then you can dip back into your light blue and work, some of that in to different areas as well, just to add diversity in the sky. Dip into my white so I can blend. I've always got my paper towel if you have too much white or too much blue on it. You could wipe if you want to just start fresh. You don't have to wash every time. Okay. Good. I'm going to make a little bit of a light purple. I really like that in the sky from our first pass. So I have some purple, I have some white, and I'm just making a little darker here. A lighter version of it. Then we'll just work it in, maybe towards the bottom. Clouds aren't actually entirely white, so what I have here is a mixture of the purple, the Prussian blue or Payne's gray if we're using that, just a dash, and the white. So we've got this purpley gray color. And I mix it into the bottom of my clouds, come back with a little white just to have a nice transition. And we're really looking again for that Monet style of short strokes, little taps. Just try your different options. Nothing has to be perfectly smooth. Okay. The purple and the Payne's gray mixing together with the white gives you that purpley gray look, and I like that in my cloud. And then a little bit of extra white blended on top of that. You can work that color in anywhere. I really love that purpley gray color, so I want to work that in a little bit more here and there. And if you have a color you like, you can do that. A little space down here that didn't quite get enough paint, so come up with something down here. And we might not see much of that anyway. There's actually going to be some bushes here, but it'll be some nice clouds coming out from the bushes if that's where we go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and switch brushes. I'll take the larger one actually. Okay, I've got that clean, mostly dry, bristly brush, and I'm just going to tap over just to see how much blending. Just over the whole thing. It's a little still wet. Just kind of unifying. Yeah. Offering that muddled unification is really what I'm going for there. Okay, I like that a lot. All right, so we're gonna stop there. Wash our brushes, dry them with a paper towel, and then we'll move on to the water. The water we'll be doing with short strokes, horizontal. Our water's gonna be calm, so with calm water we want to have short strokes to stay in the Monet style, but if we keep them horizontal, then we keep the water calmer. This is a calm day in the weather pattern here. So I've got that, I have the Payne's Gray or Prussian Blue, whichever one you're using. And we're gonna offer first to darken up the horizon line. So just going horizontally, and this doesn't have to be a perfectly clean edge because this is gonna have bushes all above it. Mostly what I'm doing here is I'm darkening the water. So I may go up against the horizon line and then eventually pull it down. Okay, and we'll just continue moving down, adding short strokes. I want to see the base color that I already painted through, so I don't want to, I'm not trying to completely cover. Okay. Yeah, just pull this always horizontal movement across, little dashes, adding a lovely texture to the water. I created a mixture of the Prussian blue, there's even a dash of the purple and white, and just to give some lights and darks on the surface of the water. So same, keeping it horizontal, enjoying the fact that the canvas has nice texture. So just we're painting over our initial underpainting. And sometimes I pick up the light color, sometimes I pick up the dark color. Just moving down with this sort of blue-gray color. If you remember, I'm using Prussian blue right now, but Payne's gray would have been fine. It'll just be maybe a tad darker, a tad grayer than Prussian blue, which is a little darker. But again, you have to find whatever blues you have in your stash are also okay. If you have phthalo blue, if you add a dash of black in it, very, very little, because the black is rather dominant. If you add a little bit of black in there, then you'll get something very close to Prussian blue. So that'll be good. We'll just continue to go down a little bit more, and then we're gonna lighten up a bit. I'll go ahead and wash my brushes. I think I'm going to add a little bit more to the clouds. So I'm going to use the same brush. I'm washing it, squeezing it out really good. I'm going to scoot this down and just a little more white fluff. I just want to brighten up some really bright clouds here and there, right on top. It'll be a nice set of dimension because it'll look like some fluff in front of fluff, which is what we always want to create with our cloud work. Depth in the clouds. I mean, sometimes the clouds are very thin, so they wouldn't necessarily have a lot of depth, but in this one I just want to put a little fluff there and just a few more here and there. Okay. Here. Okay. Okay. Oh, it's so possible to overcloud. You never know when you're quite done. We'll leave that be. Let's paint a building. If we look at our canvas in thirds, the house is definitely in the first third, and then maybe about halfway over in that. It's a rectangle, and I have burnt sienna. Take a look. I have burnt sienna. That's actually classified as an orange, technically. It's terracotta-like. Naples yellow, a very classic color. One of my favorite creamy buttery yellows, and then Van Dyke browns, my favorite browns. Also a classic color. I'm going to do a dash of white and just come up with something-ish in the middle for a building kind of color, and paint a rectangle, third, about halfway in. I'm using that same flat we've been using. Just working the paint in gently. I'm just tossing my brush into a little bit of the burnt sienna. I'll grab a dash of the yellow too, just to play with it in there. That should be enough. Running it along. Eventually we'll have some bushes in front of the house, so don't feel like you have to be stunningly perfect, but you know, do your best always. Okay, so we'll be good there. I want to clean up that side. Okay, so I've got my rectangle there, and we're going to do a roof line, so I will switch brushes. I don't know, I think I could use this one actually. I'll go ahead and wash it though. I'm going to use the Van Dyke Brown. I'm going to add the tiniest bit of white just because I don't want it to be quite so dark. And just a line here, just past your rectangle. Okay. Yeah, I just use the, you notice the brush is being held 90 degrees, so I just painted a line roughly. It's the front. And then we'll go across here. This I'm gonna go actually wipe a dash and then dip in the terracotta so that we've got the burnt sienna, sorry, so that, and it'll come right across. Okay, and then another, we'll do the top two. In the, it's mostly the dark brown with the terracotta, whereas we didn't have quite as much dark brown on the bottom. We'll have more of it on the top roof. And it'll just come across. Okay, and fill that in. Remember, Monet was an impressionist, so you know, all of these are just impressions of what he saw. So I hesitate to say that that doesn't mean it wasn't a great painting, that it wasn't an exact, but it was allowing paint to be beautiful in itself and the marks to be beautiful. The human eye will put it all together. You don't have to feel, enjoy the little muddled mixtures and the paint smushes and the all of that. Okay. Okay, so we just got basically two rectangles. Okay, and we're gonna let those dry, then we'll do a second layer. Actually, looking at this, I did my roof a little longer, so I'm gonna dry my brush, go back in for the burnt sienna mixture, and just extend out this house a little bit. Not a big deal. We're gonna have a bush right there anyway, but I know it kind of messes with the eye if it's not fairly even at this point. And I want the house to have texture, so I'm kind of like playing with the paint there. Okay, I'm gonna take a dash of the yellow and work it in while it's wet. Just trying to get the right value, light, dark, by working that yellow in. We're going to have doors and windows on this later, and we're going to need our shadow under the roof, so I'm just trying to figure out what exactly I need. Okay. I think I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt sienna into my brown. Just sweep that in. Still a little wet, so it'll blend nice. It's just nice to have two colors. We can't see things as well if we don't have a comparison next to it, so it kind of helps like that. All right. All right, let's wash the brush. I want to just offer up a shadow. I just dipped my brush into the dark brown. I'm going to come right up here and tap here to suggest a little shadow on the side. Same thing, little shadow underneath. Sounds like I have email. Mix that underneath. Okay. All right. I switched brushes. I have a smaller one now, and I'm grabbing a little bit of the Naples yellow mixed in with the I have mixed in a little bit of Naples yellow and burnt sienna, so I've got this lighter color that we were working with, and I'm doing a tiny little window right here. I think it's up in the middle there. You can decide how wide you want to make it, but it's just right there, and then I'm going to go ahead and take a little more of this yellow and work it into the whole side of the house. I don't want the house to be yellow necessarily, so I'll blend it with the burnt sienna just underneath here. And just going back and forth. Like a little brick. Okay, wipe off that, go into the brown and make a roof line. There's a tiny little pitch where our just there in our little house. Just adjusting a little something up there. It's nothing perfect. If you look at the model, it's just a tiny suggestion there in the roof line there. And it doesn't have to look exactly the same, you know. So then we'll go ahead and do just some windows. We'll take, actually let's do, okay, we're gonna take the roof, a little bit of the Naples yellow, just a little bit of it on the top of the roof area here. And then we're gonna use that to make our chimney as well. Just a little. It's a little too much. Take some of the back over it. We just all different. Maybe a little bit of the brown can go in there too. Got my little chimney. I'm working on muddling my roof so it's got that impressionistic vibe where we've got all the different textures and colors and brush strokes next to each other. I'm gonna bring out my window a little bit better, my little pitch there. Then we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of some windows. Just grabbing the burnt sienna. And maybe we'll do 3 windows across the top. I keep it very light. I'm going to go ahead and take some of the yellow, go over that. Maybe here. Okay. Okay. All right. We'll let that sit there. Right here I have some white, and I'm going to use a little bit of sap green. Whatever green you have. You're just going to need to have maybe some 3 or 4 different choices. So you can make a darker green, a lighter green. I also like Naples yellow. If you'll notice, it's a little more opaque. And I like that to make a yellowy green. But you use what you have as well. And sometimes I'll pick up a lighter green. So I'll make a little bit. Okay, there's a light green that I can use. And then sometimes I may pull a bit of a yellowy green. And then sometimes we'll just pick the straight green. This sap green is one of my favorite greens to use for foliage. It is a rather transparent green. If you add a little bit of the Naples or a little bit of the white, you get a little variation in the green, but also it makes it more opaque. It makes it lighter. Of course, if you were to use more of the green, it wouldn't be quite so light, but it is transparent. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. And so we're working on bushes that run along the coastline. Here, we'll just do tiny little taps. Remember, we're an impressionist style, so these are just little taps. I've got a rather small, this says number 6 for my Simply Simmons brushes. Just a little tap of all the different greens. You can see there's lighter ones, darker ones, yellow ones. And we'll just move along here like little bushes. And you can look at the Monet's original too to see a little where the inspiration comes for this. Right now, we just need to have a little bit. I'm grabbing in the light and the dark and just tapping along the coast in a bush shapes. So there'll be different little jut outs. It'll be a nice set of texture. Just tapping along. You'll go you're covering up your coastline, basically. And we'll probably do this in 2 different sets. We may blow dry and then add some more on top as we add trees and bushes. So I'm going right over the base of my house here. I'm going to even cover some of the house. This is what's going to add layering. I'm definitely into the water because I'm creating this little island, a landmass as well. A little dark, a little light, and just move my way down and go into some of that yellowy green too. I may wipe some of the paint off, but I'm not actually cleaning the brush every time. So just a little, grab one of my mini here and just wipe. Don't have to clean it every time. Sometimes it's just enough. So there may be taller bushes in some areas, lighter in others. Just move along, do your own thing. I'm gonna go up here a little bit. So there's a little more mass here. And there's actually on the model, we've got a tree here, just some bush structure here. So I'll go ahead and add a few more taller, different sized bushes. We've got the one along the house too. It's the same thing, we're just tapping lights and darks. So add a little bit of the yellow here and just go ahead and create a tree there. Get some of the dark now. Probably a little bit too much there. I'm wiping some off my brush and using it to spread around. Darker there. Okay. Okay. And there's a little bit of a sort of a, I don't know what you call it, maybe like an inlet sort of. We've got some land here that is a little bit lower in the water, and then it just comes in out some, so we can almost say like there's a little cove island there. We can put it in the water there. Okay, and there is a tree here, tall, I don't know, just run that up the side of the building. It'll cover up part of our building, which is fine. And you don't have to cover part of your building. We're inspired by Monet. I'm trying to teach you methods and inspire your art, but you definitely want to make changes and make it your own. Okay, just a little tree there. I think we need some more dark. Not over mixing. If you stay in one area for too long while it's wet, this wet on wet, you end up just making another color and then it has no diversity. We definitely need to have lights and darks. We can't see things, a differentiation. We can't see the little branches and things about the tree if we don't change textures and values and colors. So we definitely need that. Okay, I like that. So we'll stop there on that for the moment. We're going to add some very, very far away faint buildings. I will wash my brush now. In the original, there are some little houses and structures, things that are too small and undefined to truly exactly know what they are in that. So I'm just taking a dash of titanium buff. You could also just use, I'll put a little yellow in your white, a little brown in your white. Just make a white, a not so perfectly white. And I'm gonna add, let's see, what I'm talking about are right here. There's little structures. I've got some little rectangles with some little yellow roofs here and there. There's a little one with a little blue roof just off in the distance, and you can see that in your, if you Googled the painting, you'll see that there too. Little tiny buildings far away. So we'll go ahead and do one over here. And then don't get too much into your green. I don't want to disrupt it. I'm just tapping some structures here. Maybe we'll put one right between these two trees. And we'll put a blue roof on that later. We're just suggesting something in the background. Okay. I like the idea of pulling a little bit of blue into those buildings, or even a little blue into our bushes. So I'm taking that Prussian blue that we have. I'm going to add, I think, a dash of white to make it a little bit lighter for a roof. Okay, so maybe, let's see, just a line. I really don't want any detail. A few brush strokes and the mind will make it something, a building. little dot there. It's like, oh, those are windows. There's a roof. We don't have to get detailed. If we get detailed, then we actually pull the coastline, the horizon line closer to us. If we don't have a lot of detail, then we make everything look farther away, which is what we need because these are very tiny. Just a little yellow there. Maybe there's a roof over there. So just tiny structures. I think I'm making some green blue as well. Mixing some of my sap green, my Prussian blue. So now I have a blue-green, just something different, and add that into my bushes too. It'll be darker, but it's nice to see the blue into the bushes since we've got blue in the sky and blue in the water. I'm just tapping a little bit of it here and there. It's a nice way to tie the painting together if you see blue in different elements. Okay, all right, now I will wash my brush because I want to see a little more of that darker Prussian blue in my water. Just almost like it's a shadow underneath all of these bushes. Just a darker horizon line underneath your bushes. And I do want to, because water takes reflections and takes on colors, I'm going to put a dash of green into the water as well. Just the green alone, not a lot on the brush, maybe a little bit over here. There's a little bit of white on my brush here, just it's lightening up the green. I'm just adding it, suggesting that there's a reflection of the bushes and the trees in the water. There would be some green, taking that onto the water surface. We'll do that there. And we may come back and add more later. This is just a start. So you can see that in the original. Take a look. Keep referring to your original as your inspiration, or you could go off on your own, or you can totally learn from me, do everything I do in this one, and then go paint it again and make some changes. So it's a great way to learn and then be your own and learn from experimenting as well. So there's a little bit of green in the water. I like that. Nothing. Okay. And we'll add more to the water later. I like where we're going. Okay, anything I think I want to do? We'll blow dry this, and then we need to add the boats, the swans, the reflections. That'll be fun. We're getting started on our boats. We have 3 boats. Obviously, the one in the front is going to be larger than the others. This is the main boat in the Monet as well. If you want to Google that picture and get a look at it. This shape here is what we're going to work on. And we'll start with our line in the center of our boat. This is the bow, the front of it. And if we start with just a little line, we would just paint that line in our burnt sienna, and then we've got this shape here, and we'll make adjustments to that. This shape, it's the farther away side. It's going to be smaller, it's going back, so it is It's going to be more like that. We won't even really see a lot going on over here because we're going to be taking some of the blue and giving the illusion of a shadow. So when we paint, we won't really see a lot of that side. It'll kind of disappear. As well, we'll bring paint over the bottom as the water is shadowing under there. So there's some of the blue water. And then we'll bring down the shadow as well. So down a little bit, we'll take some of the brown paint that's shadowing underneath. Well, eventually we'll draw this mast here. That'll draw that up. And then there'll be a very muddled, reflective version of it here as well. Right? And we'll do the same thing in mini versions, which will be even less detailed and even more impressionistic back here. You'll notice here that the odd numbers, the shape of a triangle, it's very common in art, very pleasing to the eye. Even right here, we've got bush, boat, bush. That makes a 3 and a triangle. Really nice. Our swans almost make a triangle here too. So we've got a triangle here. Something to think about when you're making compositional choices. Okay, let's get started. Little boat. It's good to have a piece of paper and a pen to practice when you're doing your artwork. I always like to do a little drawing or a little sketch first. Okay. All right, so for our boat colors, I'm using burnt sienna and Naples yellow, maybe a little white. I still have the blue as well, the Prussian blue, phthalo, whatever blue you have that we can use to bring around the boats. Where to put your boats, I do want, the mast, I don't want it to be in dead center, so it's going to be over one, but there has to be room to put the 2 small boats too, so I like right here, maybe. So if I take a little bit, my brush is clean. I'm using that same small one we just did for the bushes too. If I'm going to go ahead right about here, just a little line, a couple of taps. Notice I'm holding the brush 90 degrees. And I just did that initial start line. It's hard to see with the dark, I know. We'll then do that shape I talked about. Coming down here and here. And suggesting that it's back there, but we'll work on that too. Okay, this side will be darker, and that will allow it to fade into the water. I think we could even grab a little bit of your white or your buff so you can see that it'll come up a little more clearly. Hey, if you want to watch it and then hit pause and do it again, and remember, you can always wipe it off and do it again. I have just a little water in your paintbrush, a little water in your paintbrush, and you can remove what you've done. Or I always keep baby wipes on hand a lot of the time so that I can I don't like that, wipe it off, and then adjust. Okay, there's that half of the boat. I'm probably going to do a second coat on that. And then on this side, okay, I just put a little bit of the Prussian blue into my burnt sienna just to darken it up. And that's going to be on the right side of the boat here, my right. Okay. All right. Let's see, we got a nice little boat getting going here. I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So to do that, I'll just go back and get some of the burnt sienna only. And maybe just pull that out a little bit more. Maybe make that line a tad bigger. There we go. Okay. And on the other side, my Prussian blue and burnt sienna mixture. Pull that out. Okay, and then wipe my brush off and take only the Prussian blue and then go into, it looks like the water is taking over this side because it's not going to be as noticeable. A little bit of the dark blue directly under the boat, that would represent shadow, maybe touching the boat. I'm just making tiny horizontal lines, crisp lines. You have to take advantage of the fact that your brush is a flat and has a beautiful crisp line. It's very important that you take care of your brushes so that you can use these to your advantage. Just going up into it. There. Okay. Need to let that dry. I'm going to wash my brush. Excuse me. I'm going to wash my brush and do the little bit of shadow with very little burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is medium intensity. It's not, it's pretty opaque, but we're not going to use a lot. And just go down below and just rub a little burnt sienna over. If you have some green there, it's okay. So little green, little, I'm going to wipe off my brush. It's probably take off. So I have a cleaner brush now and then just wipe up and move around that. So it looks like, oh, there's a reflection of that boat in the water. Really grounds the boat. Before you add the shadow of the darker blue underneath, before you add the reflection of the burnt sienna underneath, it doesn't look like it's part of the water. And so this is very important in that it grounds you down. Going back to that burnt sienna and blue mixture, remember that blue and orange, those are complementary colors. So when you mix, and our burnt sienna represents orange here, if you mix blue and orange, you'll get darker colors, you'll get neutral colors. So a little bit of blue in my burnt sienna actually darkens my burnt sienna. And I just want to darken up this side. It's really important that we understand that this is in shadow. I'm kind of going off to the side there. Another thing that's really going to help us is that line. It's a cross contour line that gives us the shape of our boat. So take a little more burnt sienna. Okay. All right, I think we've got nice shadow on the side of the boat. I did blow dry, so now I'm going to just grab a little bit of the yellow. I've added a little bit of burnt sienna to it. Remember that Naples yellow we were using? It's got a little burnt sienna in it. And we're just going to very lightly go along that line. Just a tad. I mean, I'm ever so lightly tapped it. And then take a little, it's like a little, just a paint decoration of the boat, but oh, it really helps. Let's do the mast now. I've got my Naples yellow on the same brush. I want the mast to land just a little after the center line of the boat. Over just to here. Just kind of judge, well, in this one, it's about half the size of my brush, roughly. Well, you just give it an eyeball where you want it to land in your painting. I like the idea of it being above the house just for compositional choices. So if I look over, I know it needed to be here. Okay, I'm going to place my pinky on, and we're just going to go down the painting. It's okay if it's a little wonky. It's not a big deal, really. I'm going to go ahead and do another pass. I want it to be a little bit thicker. It's up to you. The pinky on the painting is really what's going to help guide me. Okay, I like that. I need to do a little brown. Let's see. When I did the blue, I like the blue and the burnt sienna together. Made a nice brownish color. So you do get a little bit of a brown. We just need a shadow color. Okay. I like mixing the colors in my palette rather than just going and squirting brown. We don't, you know. But if you have a little leftover brown from your house too, that'll work. And this I want to be a little thinner. I don't want the shadow to be as thick as that. So it'll just be one pass. Notice my pinky, it's what's going to brace me. It's just right next to it. Nothing perfect. And again, this may take some practice, but practice just means you get to paint more. Okay, a little bit of a shadow there. Super cool. As my husband says, super fantastic. Okay, so guess what? We have 2 more boats. We need to do it again. Let me go ahead and wash my brush. And go ahead and do your other 2 little boats. I think for the other 2 boats, I want a smaller brush. So grab something smaller, and you're going to do the exact same shape on each side. In this case, my boats are blue, so I'm adding a little white to my Prussian blue. And you could even do little green boats, or put some green in your blue so they look a nice blue-green. I like that idea. I'm grabbing some green. Remember, it's nice to tie everything together. So if you do blue and green, you'll have blue of the water, the green of the bushes. It'll just all look really nice. And it won't be quite so bright either. I don't want a bright blue back there. It'll be a little distracting. Okay, so same thing. Right about here, because I want, to look like that triangle shape. Do a little dash, a little line. And we'll go ahead and do that shape. I'm just tapping my brush actually. Okay. Gonna wipe, take the blue back, go blue. I need a little darker on the opposite side, remember? So do that shape. It's gonna be ever so subtle. This is tricky because you don't want it to be the same color. Yes, it's blue, so we don't want it to look like the same color as the water. But it's an impressionist painting. It's far away, so we certainly don't want it to be to stick out. These boats are small, so. And even if your boat is not perfect, once you add the mast, it'll kind of all make sense. So sometimes it just doesn't have to be super exact. The human eye will go ahead and do what it needs to do. It needs to be similar, definitely. Okay, and remember we need to do dark blue underneath. So I wiped my brush off and went and got dark blue. I'm putting that right underneath my boat, so my boat is nice and grounded. Right, and then I'm going to take white. Again, I wiped my brush. White is what I'm going to do along my line here. That'll make it pop out a little bit more. More in there. Okay. I need to touch that up. Again, it's the exact same thing as this. It's just very tiny. So I'll do another one on the right side. Little line. Boat shape. This one's a little more green. Yay! Okay, a little bit there. Wash my brush. Get some of the dark blue to add to the bottom. Okay. Grab the white again. And add the little side. And just a little line there. Okay. that masked as well. It can be thinner. So, but I am going to go back to the first brush I had because I like that line. Nice control. I just have a little bit of yellow on my brush. My pinky supports me. This one is only going to be certainly half of it. So there. And here. It's okay if it goes over top of the house. And that certainly helps with your sense of depth. Something is in front of something else. And we want to have shadow. So we'll grab my shadow color and do a very thin line right next to it. Sorry, I had to make more. Resting my hand on the painting and running. Notice how I hold my brush 90 degrees when I want to make that straight line, because I want to take advantage that my brush is a straight line. So holding it up 90 degrees, using my pinky, sliding my whole hand down, resting on the table, all of that really helps. Just a few more things to add here. If you'll notice on the original and on my painting, there are lines that connect to the boat. We want to go ahead and just suggest those. And I'm just using a pencil. You could paint them in, but they're very, very light, and I think the pencil works just as good. So my painting is dry. You don't want to draw on top of a wet painting. And we're just going to swoop down. You won't be able to see them well. You don't want to see them too well. And it's just a swoop, nothing too rigid. Just from the mast, just symbolize where the sails would be. And you probably won't see them all very well because there's a lot of bushes going on. It's just, and in Monet's original, you don't see every single one. So just, they might show up just better on that light blue sky. But you go ahead and add them in. Very, very light touch. You're just suggesting them there. Okay, great. Then we're going to go ahead and add our swans. So we'll need a small brush for those. Okay, go ahead. And you'll be using some white. The swan body, it is again just a simple impressionistic suggestion of a swan. So I have 3 on a bottom row, 2 on a top row. You can put them wherever you like. Just think compositionally what is, you know, nothing too uniform, I suppose. I'm going to take a little bit of white. I'm even going to dip my brush in some water first because I want the swan it just to be very, very light. Not a bold representation of the swan. So right about here, we'll go ahead and just offer a tiny little smudge for the body. There. And then something for the head. I got, again, a little paint dot, and then a neck. There's one. It's almost like a little, like a letter S, if you think about it. We'll do one over here. The head, maybe. A little letter S. And then a little body. And that works better. So we'll go ahead with the little letter S. I need to add a little more paint to that one. My brush was too watery there. Little head, letter S, body. Okay. And here we'll do one. Little head, letter S, and little body. Okay. You can practice these on another sheet. Have some canvas paper ready. Letter S. And then we'll do one more here. That guy got a little big, didn't he? All right, this is a good opportunity to show you how to remove something. I'll go ahead and take one of our smaller brushes, dip a brush in some water, tap. You don't want it to be too drippy, and we're just gonna get him out of here. Use a little water. Grab one of your tissues, your paper towel, and then just soak up that. A little more. And this can you can do this while it's wet, you know. If it's dried, then you might have to paint over it, depending on how long it's been on there. But there we go. We got rid of him. You were just a little too big. Didn't really make sense. Okay. So, here we go. And we'll go ahead and try this again. Take your paper towel, make sure you've gotten up all the water. Okay. And I'm going back in. Okay, and little head shape, just a little dot, and a little S. And then the body shape. Okay, there we go. All right, there we go. Little tail feathers. Make them all stick out a tad. Do. Oh, he needs help. Hold on. Okay. Okay, we've got our little guys there. We're going to go ahead and add the reflection of the masts into the water. So I have a little bit of very little, a very dry brush, just a tiny amount of the Naples yellow. I'm using the same flat brush, and we'll just go along and skip some line work. And it can be broken a little bit. You might just be tapping. I'm holding it in that 90 degree. And just a little bit here, a little bit here. I can shift to the left or right a little bit because, you know, there's movement in the water. So we could go over there a little bit. Okay. Works. All right. Thank you for joining the class. That looks good. I think we're done. Look forward to seeing you again.